The Battle on the Ice. You've probably heard of it, right? It's one of the most epic showdowns in all of medieval history. We're talking a heroic Russian prince, a legion of crusading knights, and a frozen lake that turns into a watery grave. But here's the thing. What if the most famous part of that story never actually happened? Okay, let's get into it. Just picture the scene. You've got these heavily armored Teutonic Knights, their helmets decked out with these crazy, menacing horns, and they're charging across a huge frozen lake. This is the image we all have in our heads, right? And it's pretty much all thanks to one incredible movie. And that, right there, is the big question. For all its cinematic glory, is that epic scene what really went down on that day back in April 1242? Well, to find out, we've got to separate the myth from the medieval reality. Okay, so first up, let's just quickly run through the legend, the version of the story that's been told for generations. So the story we all know goes something like this. The brilliant Prince Alexander Nevsky of Novgorod lures the super-heavy Teutonic Knights onto the thin ice of Lake Peipus. And just as he planned, under the massive weight of all that armor, the ice cracks, it shatters, and it swallows the invaders whole. It's an amazing victory for the Russian forces and a perfect story of brains over brawn. But to really get this battle, you gotta understand the world it happened in. So let's rewind the clock to the 13th century. Take a look at this map. It really gets to the heart of the conflict. See, this wasn't just some random fight. This was happening on the frontier between Western Catholic Europe, represented by these Livonian Knights, and the Eastern Orthodox Russian states, like the Republic of Novgorod. Tensions were, incredibly high. And this whole thing wasn't happening in a vacuum. It was part of a much bigger movement called the Northern Crusades. For decades, Catholic military orders had been pushing east, trying to conquer and convert the local peoples. So this battle, it was a major flashpoint in a long, simmering conflict. So on one side, you've got the Novgorodian alliance, a force of about 5,000 soldiers led by our guy, Prince Alexander. And on the other, you have the Livonian alliance, which was a branch of the Teutonic Knights and their allies, clocking in at around 2,600 troops. The stage was definitely set for a major clash. All right, so now that we've set the stage, let's put on our historical detective hats. What do the very first sources actually say about what happened? And this is absolutely key. We have no real eyewitness accounts. None. All of our information comes from chronicles that were written down decades, sometimes even centuries after the battle. And, as you're about to see, they don't exactly line up. And right away, we hit our first huge problem for the legend. This quote comes from the Livonian rhymed chronicle, that's the German account of the battle, and it says their men fell dead on the grass. On the grass, not on ice. This is a massive clue that the popular story might have a few holes in it. And if you think the Russian sources clear things up, well, they don't. The Sisdalian Chronicle here simply says the battle happened at the lake. Again, not on the ice, just at it. That could mean on the shore or even just nearby. It's super vague. And it doesn't stop there. Just look at the casualty numbers. The Livonian Chronicle claims only 20 knights were killed and 6 were captured. But the Novgorod Chronicle, it claims 400 Germans were killed and 50 were captured, plus a countless number of their allies. I mean, it's almost like they're talking about two completely different fights. So this leads us to the real mystery here. If the first accounts of the battle talk about fighting on grass or just at the lake and say nothing, literally nothing, about cracking ice or drowning knights, where in the world did that famous image come from? Well, the answer, it turns out, isn't in the 13th century at all. It's way, way later. We're now entering the world of modern myth-making. This timeline really breaks down how the legend got built up piece by piece. For over 200 years, the story is just a battle near a lake. Then, fast forward to the 1450s, and a text called The Life of Alexander Nevsky is the first to put the whole fight on the ice. But the most dramatic part, the ice cracking, the knights drowning, that doesn't show up until 1938. So that image we all know, it comes from Sergei Eisenstein's 1938 film Alexander Nevsky. And listen, this wasn't just some historical epic. This was state-sponsored propaganda released right as the Soviet Union was facing the threat of Nazi Germany. The symbolism was crystal clear. The invading German knights with helmets that looked suspiciously like German helmets from World War I were stand-ins for the Nazis. That whole ice-breaking scene was pure cinematic invention designed for maximum political punch. So there you have it, the drowning of the Teutonic Knights, the most famous, most dramatic moment of the battle on the ice, is actually a piece of 20th century political filmmaking. It's not a 13th century historical fact. Okay, so if the story is a myth, why do we even care? Why is this battle still celebrated today? Because even without the whole ice-breaking scene, the battle was real, and its legacy is huge. I mean, from a 16th century manuscript to a modern Russian postage stamp, this event has been remembered for centuries as a truly pivotal moment in history. Make no mistake, the outcome of the battle was very real and super important. The victory by Novgorod basically slammed the brakes on the German Crusaders' expansion to the east. It set a boundary between the Catholic West and the Orthodox East that would stick around for centuries. And over the centuries, Alexander Nevsky himself was transformed. He was made a saint in the church. He became Russia's ultimate national hero, the guy who stood up against foreign invaders. His image was used again on propaganda posters during World War II to rally the Soviets against another German invasion. And even today, the anniversary of the battle is a national day of military honor in Russia. The legend, you could say, became more powerful than the actual history. And all this leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. The story of the cracking ice might be a myth, but it's a myth that has been used to inspire people, to rally a country, and to define a nation's identity for centuries. And that kind of makes you wonder, when a story becomes that powerful, does its strict historical accuracy even matter anymore?